Internet, and welcome to episode number 261 of the Comic Watchers Show. I'm Matt, he's Chad, we love comics, and this is our show where we gab about them. With us this week is writer and creator Omar Morales, here to talk about his Comixology exclusive book, Major Thomás, which is on sale now for an astonishing, and nobody's paying me to say this, but I'm truly astonished, an astonishing $6.99. for 150 pages worth of comics content. So Omar, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for the warm welcome, guys. I appreciate the time, and let's get into it, man.
Let's get into it. So, Major Thomás, let's pretend that the people listening don't know a thing about it and want to know more. What is Major Thomás about?
I've been describing it as La Bamba meets Lost in Space meets Guardians of the Galaxy, right? The main character, Major Thomás, he's very much like a Richie Valens type of character, you know, whereas Richie Valens was a rock star coming, you know, from the farms of California. Thomás aspires to be an astronaut, also coming from the farms of Central California. So it's a bit of a, you know, coming of age, but then it flips and becomes a hero's journey once he gets lost out in space. So if you like classic sci-fi storytelling, you know, it's really a timeless story. It's set in the near future, but to me, this story could be set in the 1950s or the year 2050. Like, it doesn't matter, right? And so it's PG-13. It's very clean for any parents wondering out there. There's no cussing, no sexual situations. There's just like what Nintendo calls cartoon violence, right?
So your book is, like you said, it's set in the near future, 2036, and I think you have a very much more ideal outlook at what 2036 is going to be like as opposed to our current trajectory. Talk to us a little bit about why you chose to set the book in the near future rather than any other point in time.
I wanted it to be plausible that humanity had unlocked hyperspace. So in the book, Thomás becomes not only the youngest spacefaring astronaut in the history of NASA, but he becomes the first hyperspace traveler in the history of humanity. What's not in the book, which maybe I hope to explore someday, is they started testing the hyperspace with the robot monkey. His name is Albert III. And they tested it with him, and it worked. And so now they wanted to, you know, try it with a human and to go out and try to find another planet, because eventually this one's going to get all used up and, you know, it's going to be no good anymore, right? And so humanity's trying to get ahead of that by trying to find, you know, the planets that are in the Goldilocks zone that could support life. So I figured, 2036 is probably a good year as any to forecast that we might have unlocked it by then. And, you know, a full disclosure, I'm a huge believer in all the UFO and alien mania that's dominating, you know, YouTube these days and other forms of media. And it seems like we're getting closer to disclosure. It might be a slow drip, but I think eventually it's going to be out that, like, yes, we have crafts, and yes, we've been able to reverse engineer them. So, that's why I chose that date.
All right. Chad, you want to jump on in?
Yeah, taking a step back, tell us about your journey as a comic book reader and creator.
Yeah, so I've been at this for over 10 years now. I started, you know, very small, just doing a one floppy back in like 2010 or so. And then I expanded it into a graphic novel, and that took some time. That took some years. And so my first Kickstarter ever was 10 years ago, 2015. And, you know, I did well with that, and it was fun. And so I just kept going with it. I found anthology projects to get involved in. And then some of those anthology projects, I took my short story and made it into something bigger. So that landed me a contract with Scout Comics for a project called Lunar Ladies. That's like a very old fashioned, like 1940s style EC Comics, you know, ray guns, laser rays, that kind of thing. And I'd been working on Major Thomás in the background while doing all this anthology work and some published work, crowdfunding. I even have some fan fictions on my website. If anyone out there likes Star Wars or Metroid, you know, hit my website, theforcemedia.com. There's a few freebies there available for you. And that probably brings me up to current times where I had started talking to Comixology Originals probably like a year and a half ago, but the main contact I was speaking to left the company, and so that left me drifting out in space, so to speak, without a tether, and I didn't really have a way to follow up. And then just by happenstance and accident, almost, I got reconnected with them, and we picked up where we left off. And they were like, "Yeah, we like this. Let's do it." And so, fast forward 8 months after meeting with them in person at San Diego Comic-Con, and here we are, up to current date.
So your artist Serge Acuna has a very, very clean line to his style. How did you guys come together, and how did you know he was the right artist for this project?
Serge is amazing. I met him through Instagram, started engaging with him, and talking to him on social media. And once I got to know him and understand who he is and what he's all about, I pitched him the project, and he liked it. And so he said, "All right, let's do it." And then he was able to bring in Raul Angulo, who does the colors. Now, both of these guys have blown up, right? We started doing this years ago, and now Serge is working with DC Comics very consistently. Raul's working with Marvel and other rather big publishers. So at one point, they actually had to exit the project, but they were really instrumental in helping me bring in the next crew, which is Mal Mora, also from Costa Rica, same as Serge and Raul. And then Fabi Marquez from Brazil. She does the colors for a large portion of the book. But what Serge and Raul did for me was they agreed to do some flashback pages. So later on in the story, we get some flashbacks back to Thomás's childhood, as well as Lisa, who's like the main love interest in the story. Some backstory to fill in about her life. And so I'm really pleased with how it all came out, man. It's been just so wonderful to work with these people. They're like really all-star talent. Fabi's done work for DC, and now she's got all kinds of credits to her name with all kinds of publishers. And Mal's just on the verge, right? It's just a matter of time before he starts getting work with like these bigger publishers. If he hasn't already, I haven't spoken to him in a while. Maybe he's got something brewing. But and then bringing it all together, Taylor Esposito, he's the man on letters. He really, like how they say films are made in the editing room. Well, Taylor makes the comics in his editing room and makes everything work with his final touches. So yeah, man, it's a labor of love, and I'm so proud that these guys and Fabi came along with me, as well as the graphic designer, Gab Contreras. She's from Peru. All of us are Latinos and Latinas from all over the world, right? Costa Rica, Brazil, Mexico. Taylor's background is Argentine. And then we have Gab from Peru. So I couldn't be happier that the authenticity shines through in this book. And I would hope that you guys would agree with that.
Definitely. How is touching on that authenticity, how important to you was it that all the creators in the book involved were Latinx?
Very important. I sought out to create this project with that in mind, and I was quite stubborn about it. Even when Serge and Raul had to exit, I didn't want to settle for anything less than A, known quantities, B, a certain level of professional quality, but C, they had to be, Latinx creators. And I'm so glad it all came together. I'm not going to lie. There was times where it was hard, and I was like, man, am I ever going to finish this? Is this thing ever going to see the light of day? At one point, I was actually mulling a Kickstarter just because, like I told you guys, the guy I was talking to at Comixology just left like 2 weeks after we started a very nice dialogue. Yeah. And so, yeah, and I've seen it said before on social media, and I'll repeat it here. Any comic book, even if it's a mini 6-page comic or a 300-page opus, any finished comic is a miracle, man. The amount of work and focus and determination that it takes to put it together and bring it out into the world is superhuman, man. So props to all the fellow comics creators out there. That's a superpower, that not a lot of people have.
For sure. Chad?
So what about the for the story?
The inspiration for the story? It's kind of three-pronged, I guess I would say. I was musically inspired by the songs Major Tom by Peter Schilling, I love both the American version, the German version, and in particular, a cover version done by Shiny Toy Guns. I actually saw them live, and they're the ones who really got me stoked about this character who's floating out in space, desperate to get home. He's lost. He's all alone. And something about that, the way they sang the song with so much emotion, just really inspired me. And I was like, I want to create my version of Major Tom. I'm going to make him brown. I'm going to put him out in the near future where hyperspace and things like robots and aliens and, sentient AI could be plausible. And I want to fill in the gaps. I want to know who he is. Why? How did he get lost? Why is it important that he gets back home? Who did he leave behind back on home? Why should we care? So I was wanting to answer all those questions based on the music and David Bowie, of course, as well. He's the guy who put Major Tom on the map with Space Oddity. Then the second influence that came around the same time that I went to that rock concert was an astronaut named Jose M. Hernandez, who actually wrote the foreword for this story. You might have seen that on page 1 or 2. He is a real life guy from Mexico who came here as an migrant farm worker and made it into NASA, made it as an astronaut. He applied like 11 times. And he got in, and there's a movie about his life on Amazon Prime. It's a Prime original called A Million Miles Away. Michael Pena plays the astronaut in that movie. Really? Yeah, he does a great job. And a little fun fact: Jose is from the same hometown as my dad, La Piedad, Michoacan, Mexico, and he's kind of here local in the area. He owns a winery like 10 minutes down the road, and he's very involved in the community, and he's an awesome dude. So clearly props to him and his real life story. I'm just writing about fake stuff and science fiction and fantasy and trying to create an entertaining story, but his story is real. And there's a lot of Latinos who have made big contributions in NASA, and I want people to know that I'm just not making up BS here, right? I didn't just paint an astronaut brown and say, hey, this is how it should be. No. These are real people, right? There's a lady from Colombia who came here and was a housekeeper to put herself through college, and then she became a flight director. There's another lady from Mexico who most recently went into space. She started working at McDonald's when she first came here. And so I wanted to really put a spotlight on these are real people making contributions in our space program, and to inspire other people too, to say, oh, wow, maybe I can do it too. And I'm here to say, yes, you can. And then the last thing is I grew up as a huge, nerd in the 80s and 90s. I grew up on Star Wars, just like everybody else. I grew up on Marvel Comics, just like everybody else, and the Nintendo Entertainment System. So you mash all that up in a stew, and we have Major Thomás. So I hope people are enjoying the flavor out there.
So tell us about Major Thomás' supporting cast. I'm particularly interested in Lisa, the Latina with the fiery red hair.
Yes, Lisa is probably the favorite character of mine to write. She's a pistol. She's a firecracker. She doesn't take no for an answer. And when Thomás is having doubts and having anxiety and imposter syndrome, she really is the one who props up his spine and gives him a backbone and really pushes him forward to go for it and to believe in himself, even when he doesn't, And so the backstory on her is her dad's Mexican, so she's part of the community and she speaks Spanish and she's part of the farming, community. Her mom's out of the picture. Her mom is Irish, but a little known story that not a lot of people know is back in the 1800s, U.S. and Mexico had a war, and this is real stuff here. I'm not making it up. And there was a bunch of Irish immigrant soldiers on the U.S. side who got fed up by the way they were being treated by the U.S., and they defected to the Mexican side, and then they stayed in Mexico after the war was over. So there's a population in Mexico that has red hair and freckles. So if you guys know the boxing champion Canelo Alvarez, he has red hair with freckles, and he looks as Irish as my uncle McGee. He's very light skinned, and people wonder, like, how did he have red hair and freckles? Well, that's the backstory. There was a bunch of Irish that settled in and mixed in with the community, and so yeah, it's not unheard of to have a Mexican with red hair and freckles, and she really is the heart and soul of the story. We have, Davis, who's a gray alien. He's like the comedic relief. He was modeled after a combination of Alf from the 80s TV show, as well as the little gray alien from American Dad. I can't remember his name.
I know who you mean.
Yeah. He's like a mashup of those two guys, bringing like the.
He's got a little beer gut too.
Yeah, exactly right. And then we have Albert III, the robot monkey, and really his backstory is NASA actually sent monkeys into space when they were testing, and they named the first one Albert I, and then the second one Albert II. So when I created this monkey who's a robot and a co-pilot with Thomás, I was like, I'm going to make him Albert III. Just to keep in line with that tradition of sending, monkeys into space, which I think was highlighted in the Umbrella Academy on Netflix. I love that scene. I was like, oh my gosh. And at the time I was working on the book and I was like, oh, this is awesome, So yeah. And then of course we meet all manner of enemies, the reptoids out in space. And they're kind of stoogey. They're kind of funny, they fart and they burp and they drink alcohol and they smoke cigars. they're kind of Guardian style enemies, which are
right.
You like to have fun with them, they're not
your typical space antagonists.
Yeah, right. They're not super like over the top evil. They're kind of right. Cartoony and fun to laugh at, like something like a lower tier mob family or something from like The Sopranos or that one with Johnny Depp. What was that one called? Donnie Brasco, where he joins this group, but they're not so great. They're kind of fumbling and bumbling around a little bit. So I had a lot of fun with it, guys. I wanted to make very clear distinctions because one of my gripes about comics in general, it doesn't matter if it's independent or big two, is when you have visual confusion and you're like, you can't tell the characters apart. And they all start to blend together and you kind of forget who's who and who's speaking right now. What's that guy's name again? Or what's that lady's name? They all kind of just blend together. And I was like, I really want distinct robot monkey, gray alien, redhead love interest. Then we have, the robots, and even them, they're distinct among each other with how they style themselves and, their swag and how they carry themselves. And like there's the main group of the 5 robots that allies with Thomás, and I wanted each of them to have their own voice. So like one of them has like a French kind of dialect, another one speaks more like an American guy. Then we have one that speaks like a pirate, and so I kind of went out of my way to make sure that this was digestible for general audiences, but especially for kids, because who knows, this might be their first comic. And this is how I learned English too, as a little kid, by the way. That's kind of part of my origin story, Chad. I learned English by reading comics and reading toy packaging.
So the story kind of starts off slice of life, and then it kind of veers off into the science fiction. Is there anything that how was that difficult to kind of transition between the two?
No, not really. I'm a huge fan of storytelling where you see the protagonist as a child, as let's call him a teenager or grade school, high school, and then as a young adult. Like one of my favorite books of all time is by an Irish author. It's called Angela's Ashes, and it was actually made into a movie, and it's the exact same formula: boyhood, teenage, and then young adult. And to me, those types of stories are quite satisfying. And so that was really more of my thinking with this, is I wanted to hit all 3 of those. And it just so happens that Earth is kind of slice of life, to your point, coming of age. And then I wanted to get really over the top and have some fun with, blowing stuff up and guns and ships and, all manner of sci-fi hijinks. To make it, fast paced, which I think the book is. I don't linger a lot on any given scene or plot point, and I keep it moving. And I like also traditionally to give readers the whole story arc. So if you buy the book for $6.99, we're not talking about a single issue here or an extra large, one shot. This is a full arc graphic novel, right? You get the beginning, the middle, the end. You have closure at the end, and it can stand alone. But my hope is that people want more because of the way it ends, and I hope that it lends itself to that. But I know, Matt, you're just halfway through, but Chad, if you happen to finish it and it left you wanting for more, I'd love to hear it.
I did finish it, and I was wondering if there were plans to do more with, how they kind of, how it ends. Not to
Yeah.
spoil it for Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did want to leave the door a little bit open, right? I think when George Lucas, made the first Star Wars, he didn't know if it was going to be successful or not. But what he did is he had Han Solo have Darth Vader flip out in a tailspin so he's not dead, right? The Death Star's blown up, but Darth Vader, he left him alive just in case he would need him again, right? So that's kind of the technique that I used, was like, just in case I can do more of this, I need to leave it a couple loose ends,
And have you thought about that part of the story, or
Oh
is
yeah.
it something that you've planned out?
Yes. In fact, I was working on it last night, Chad. I had an outline, rough outline of what Volume 2 could look like. I started fleshing that out a little bit more, such that I could be ready to go in case my number is called. And I actually have some pages done, script pages. And, in Volume 2, I need to take it up a notch and even more action, adventure, introduce new types of tropes, and really open things up. Because now the foundation has been laid, right? We got the very basic, 3-act structure and introduced everybody. And now we've got to make it hard on them. I think I made it hard on them in this book, but now I got to make it even harder if there's another one.
Yeah, you just described your own personal Empire Strikes Back, to continue to use the Star Wars metaphor.
Absolutely. And then that one also ends, in a manner that's like, oh my gosh, I need more, But in an ideal world, guys, I'm doing this as a trilogy. The first story is told very much from the perspective of Thomás. I would love to tell a second story, which is more from the perspective of Lisa, and then cap it off with a third where it's through the perspective of Al-3, the robot monkey. And part of that is, again, going back to George Lucas, he said that C-3PO and R2 are our constant guides and companions. The story is really told through their robotic eyes. And that always kind of stuck with me. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have the final part of a trilogy be told more from his perspective? And he really is the Jiminy Cricket, the conscience of the story. And I've got ideas, guys. That's what I can tell you. And I really hope that people are agreeable, because people really seem to be responding. They love Lisa. They want more of her. They love Al-3. They want more of him. And so I'm like, okay, I think I can do that.
R2-D2 is the ride or die, because he knew everything and didn't snitch.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Whereas C-3PO, they purposely wiped his memory. R2 was ride or die. You're right.
So I kind of got a little bit of Atomic Robo when you were feel that with with the robots from the planet. Is that one of the influences, or intentional, or just the way it came out?
I think that was quite unintentional, to be honest. The robots are actually modeled after my favorite football team, the Oakland Raiders. They're kind of tough. They're pirates. They don't take any crap from anybody. They're very counterculture. They're very anti-establishment, and they're dressed in silver and black. And so that's really who those guys are. And I wanted that represented in the story. Now, what I will tell you about the planet and such, I didn't want to waste any time making up fake stuff with world building. I was like, I'm going to use real places that actually exist in our galaxy. So the planet he ends up marooned on, Wolf 1061C, is a real place, and it's stuck in tidal lock. So it's always has a burning hot side and a frozen cold dark side, much like our moon, how one side is always lit and the other side is always dark. This is a real planet. It's in the Ophiuchus constellation, which is a real constellation. And in that same constellation and galaxy, there's this giant black hole called the Giant Annihilator, and it's real. And so all of these places are in the book because I didn't want to just invent new stuff. I was like, I want to make this feel real, like grounded, what they call grounded science fiction. And so I used as much as I could from the real world or from the real galaxy, actually. And then some of the stuff in the book also where there's like this giant boulder where Lisa and her dad go to like meditate and get in touch with their inner spirit. It's a real place. It's called Giant Rock. It's in the Mojave Desert. And then there's another building that they go to take it even further, to take it up a notch, to enhance her mental kind of abilities. And it's called the Integratron. And it's also in the Mojave Desert. It's a real place too. So I want people to know that I did my homework, I did my research, and I wasn't trying to copy anybody else, but I also wasn't trying to invent pure fiction.
So what?
Well, I noticed that like when you're like in the beginning when they're talking about the farm workers, did the one farmer intentionally have a red hat?
Oh, actually, when I first started writing the book, MAGA and red hats were not a thing, but it just so happened that it overlapped quite synergistically. So it wasn't the intention, but you know what? Once all that stuff started happening, I was like, well, I'm not going to change it. It is what it is. So the guy, that farmer guy, he really did fit the bill. So I left it as is.
So I'm glad, Chad, you brought that up, because I was curious about how much of a parallel you see in Thomás' story and migrants in general versus what you see going on in the news. And you kind of just answered my question, because it doesn't sound like any of this was pre-planned. It was just a happy accident.
Yeah, I started really putting, a lot of thought into this story like around 2010, actually. And I had it all in my head, and I didn't start actually scripting it till like 2020. But to your point, what I really wanted the connection for people to make is that the things that Thomás experiences early in his life with the socioeconomic oppression as a migrant farm worker to be echoed when he goes out in space. And so there's things that are happening out in space that are exploitative, let's say, and unjust and unfair, and hence there's conflict, and that's the war he gets drawn into when he gets lost in space. Yes, it's over the top and cartoony, and it's meant to be fun and fast-paced and action-packed, but hopefully subconsciously people go like, oh yeah, this is not all that different from what he had early in his life. It's just in a much different, the stakes are higher, and now he's got to survive for his life. But if you think about it, a migrant farm worker coming here with nothing is fighting for their life. They're fighting for a job and a way to feed themselves and their family, and it's just in a different way. But hopefully, that's a fabric that people can see that kind of attaches the two things together.
And do you have migrant workers or in your background that you were able to maybe talk to or draw upon their experiences?
I can't say that I do. When my ancestors and uncles and my dad came here from Mexico, farm worker was not really a thing in the Bay Area. I mean, I'm sure there are farms that they're probably just very small. They had to take other types of jobs. My dad was like a dishwasher in a restaurant when he first started out. Then he worked in a bakery, like a factory, for many years. My mom worked in a cannery when I was like born and like a little toddler and stuff. But these are the types of jobs that you have to take, right? Entry level, hourly, not glamorous, right? My dad had some education behind him, but it is what it is. You got to start at the bottom. And I chose farming for this story because I wanted the community to be in close quarters. I didn't want it to be like, oh, these people all know each other and they have jobs, but then they go home and they scatter at the end of the day. In a migrant farm worker, they all live together too. There's like these barracks, that they all go home to and they socialize. And so I really needed Lisa and Thomás to have that tight bond where they're together all the time, right? They're together at school, they're together working on the farm, they're together after hours. Like when they're growing up, it's like the year 2023 or 2024 or something, but they're playing on an old ass Super Nintendo, right? When they have their little sleepovers. And that's because that's all their mom could afford, And so that's really why I chose farming for the setting, for the coming of age and the slice of life stuff. Cause I was like, I need these people to be really tight and together. And, Thomás's mom is actually like a surrogate mom to Lisa because her mom's out of the picture, and vice versa. Thomás doesn't have a dad. And so Lisa's dad is kind of a father figure, even though he doesn't really have his life together. But later on, Matt, you'll be pleased to know that there's some redemption arc for him as well. So yeah, man, that's kind of why I chose that. But I mean, hey, the immigrant farm thing is not uncommon, right? It should be easy to recognize and resonate, especially with Jose Hernandez's story. He's really the guy that really put the flag down on the moon when it comes to farm workers and NASA.
So, are you going to tell the story of her father and how he kind of made the transition from where we found it?
It's kind of not super detailed, right? There's some time skips, so we kind of see him down the road after he's made some positive changes in his life. Maybe there's opportunity in the future installments to do some flashback, to explore that a little bit more if it serves the story. And if it doesn't, it is what it is. But I definitely have some ideas on some flashbacks for future installments. I hadn't thought about that one in particular, but I really hope that on top of Thomás's story and Lisa's story, that his story is also inspirational to people, because I think that there is lots of opportunity for humans to get more spiritual, not necessarily religious, but like spiritual and in touch with where we come from and what's the meaning of it all. And because like right now we're also, stuck in front of a screen, we kind of lose a bit of our humanity. And so, I hope that people latch onto that as well.
So do you feel like community in and of itself can bring that sense of spirituality?
Yeah, I do. In that character in particular, he realizes he's not on the right path, but then there's a reason for it, right? And so he kind of explains some of that to his daughter Lisa in terms of why things are the way they are, and then eventually he does find the right community later on in the story, and that community actually helps prop up Lisa and helps her get in touch with her spiritual side, which is very key to the story. She is really the linchpin behind the scenes of the whole thing and how everything plays out. So yes, her father finds the right community that gets him in touch with his spirituality, and yes, to answer your question, Matt, absolutely. But then it also becomes a pillar and a strength for Lisa as well. So yeah, definitely. There was community early on in the story, then there's community in the middle, and then there is actually community in Act 3 where the robots become Thomás's community, a small one, but a community nonetheless. They got to band together to do what they got to do to survive this war.
So how did it end up with Comixology? Was it, and did that just feel like the right format for it?
Yes. Comixology, the people there are wonderful, and the people that help with the marketing and PR, Superfan Promotions, they're amazing. They actually helped me kind of get in front of the right people at Comixology, because again, the one guy I was talking to just disappeared without a trace, and so they helped me kind of remake the connections. But Amazon is this global phenomenon, right? And my story overnight is being seen by anybody and everybody on earth that has Amazon available to them, right? And that was important to me, particularly because I want to reach those Latino countries, Spanish-speaking countries, I mean, everybody's welcome, of course. Like, doesn't matter what language you speak. In fact, I believe if you just flip through the pages, you can understand what's going on, even if you don't read, right? Like, you can just understand just by looking at Serge's beautiful artwork and Mao's beautiful artwork. But the thing that made it attractive to me is that, but also they have partnerships with Dark Horse, Blaze, and Mad Cave, who take the digital rights of various titles and they put them into print and put them into comic shops. And so nothing's guaranteed to me that can happen, but it's a possibility, right? Amazon owns the rights to sublicense it to one of those three people. And they're doing it now, right? With various Comixology Originals titles and making them physical for comic shops. And that's the number one question I'm getting, Chad, is print. I want print. When's the print coming? I don't have an answer, but it's possible, right? And that was very attractive to me too when I was talking to Comixology. The other thing that was just kind of that tickled me pink was part of the selection process of who gets into Comixology is that Amazon Studios, right, which is Jeff Bezos's baby that now owns James Bond as well as several other IP, they have a say in what they think is good and what they think is marketable and has legs as an IP. So they had a voice at the table to greenlight my project. And just the fact that someone over there looked at it is enough for me, right? Like I have no aspirations for being in the movie business. I just want to make comics, and that's good enough for me. But still, though, that was cool, I thought.
Was there anything different writing for, the digital, presentation opposed to, writing for print?
No, it was actually identical. I mean, the book that I created could have come out in print first. It really doesn't matter. The one thing I will say is that the Comixology guidelines kind of encourage you to just use single page splashes as opposed to double spreads. But all you got to do is flip your phone, right? If you're reading on your phone or your tablet and we get a double page spread, all you got to do is flip it sideways and you get the nice panorama. But that's really the only picadillo between Comixology and a traditional print publisher where, traditional print, that they love the 2-page spread, right? But the guided view thing is amazing, dude. You could read it one panel at a time. And if you have a splash page or a spread, it starts you small and then it lets you go zoom all the way out. And then it puts you right back where you need to be in terms of, reading from top to bottom, left to right. So really, I have zero complaints about the flow and how it looks on Comixology. I think it looks amazing. And I was always a reader of Comixology anyway, and I loved the guided view to begin with. So when the contract came together, I was thrilled to death, man. It's a dream come true to be working with them because I've been a long time subscriber. And that's another thing. If you're subscribed to Unlimited, Comixology Unlimited, for like $6 a month, you can read all the originals for free. They're included, right? So whether it's Scott Snyder's books that are originals or mine or whoever else's, they're all there and available as part of that subscription at one flat monthly price.
That's pretty awesome. And I love the fact that digital Comixology and digital in general have opened up comics to a whole new audience that might not have been there before. I mean, like you were saying, you want to be able to reach people in all of the Latinx countries, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, dude. It's an amazing reach and breadth that they have globally, and the price is so attractive. They make it easy to read comics, and I want to say that a lot of their growth, organic growth from Comixology, is new readers, people that are new to comics, and it's a big number that they shared with me in terms of percentage of people. It's a big number, and to your point, they're bringing in new people. That platform is growing. Whether it's a la carte sales of a single issue at a time, or trades, or people that are borrowing because they're subscribed and they can borrow, not only originals titles, but they have a lot of Marvel and DC and other publishers that are included in that monthly subscription, that if they're labeled as unlimited, you can read them for free as part of the subscription. And here's the thing. Diamond is like, what's going on right now with Diamond, right?
Right.
They got sold, and then there's a lawsuit, and like, I am immune to all of that right now because it doesn't matter what Diamond's doing. My book is out there and reaching lots of people all over the world. And yes, I'm still hoping for the print, absolutely. But who knows? Maybe the Diamond thing could delay or derail that. I don't know. But for now, it was important for me to get this story out into the world. And I couldn't imagine a better partner than Amazon and Comixology Originals.
Do they have certain benchmarks that your book has to make, like in terms of reads, in order to greenlight a hardcover or a print version?
If they do, I'm not aware of it.
Okay.
I think they're very selective in what they allow to go onto their platform as an original. So I'm sure that they vet it out and they do their own P&L and forecast their projections for it. I don't know what that is or what those metrics are, but I'm glad I made it in. I'll tell you that.
You're a good company.
Yeah. But no, in terms of does it go to print? It's just a matter of does one of those three like it enough? And sometimes, from what I understand, all three of them like the same project, and they're kind of having to bid for the rights, for the project to bring it into print. So it's a small catalog, and so I think that that makes it competitive among those three. So yeah, my gut says if because it's such a large marketplace, right, that it's probably not hard for them to hit whatever benchmark it is that they have for greenlighting a project, because it's open to everybody. Like, here we go. Let's have a read, everybody.
So, and if you don't feel comfortable answering this question, just tell me. I'm genuinely curious. So, do you get paid up front for this project, or do you get paid based on how many views it gets, like back-end point style, or how does that work?
I'll just answer with one phrase, and I can't go into too much detail, but it's all of the above.
Okay. Very cool. I like that. I like to hear that, because that means, you're continuing to get paid, not just them. Right?
Yeah. No, I'm very happy with the
those
terms.
Creator rights are so important.
Oh, yeah. It's a creator owned. So, like, in fact, I was just talking to them a few days ago, and I asked them, I said, hey, this company approached me about doing plushies. Like, am I cool to make plushies of my robot monkey character? And they were like, yeah, it's creator owned. It's your IP, and you're free to do that. I don't think I'm going to do that anytime soon, because they wanted me to order a minimum of 500, and I don't have room for 500 plushies in my home. I could probably handle I could probably handle like 50, but I get it. It's manufacturing is you gotta do some quantities to make it efficient.
Absolutely.
And make it make sense. But maybe I can find someone on Etsy who can yarn me a few robot monkeys, and I can sell them off my website.
There you go.
So what's the best? So what's the best advice you've gotten, from another creator about your work, or it just made an impact on you?
There's lots of advice out there, not all of it good. In fact, one of my mentors, Scott Snyder, he hosts like a Comics 101 class that's monthly or sometimes every other month. And it's been going on for this is like year 3 now, but he always says, guys, there's a lot of advice out there right now for writers. Not a lot of it's good, But I will say the one thing that really captured my attention, because there was a period of time, and every creator goes through this, I'm sure, where you're first starting out and you're maybe 5 years in and you feel like you're spinning your wheels and it's like, this isn't going anywhere, I saw somewhere online somebody put, if I could talk to my younger self, comic self, when I was first starting out, I would tell them to be patient. And I would echo that, like, be patient. If you've got a story inside of you, the way I had Major Thomás inside of me, Don't let anything get in your way. And I could have quit Major Thomás like 100 times, but I didn't. I was determined and dogged to get this story out some way, somehow, even if I had to self-publish it. So yeah, be patient. I always tell people don't quit. That's all. That's the only advice I really feel qualified to say. But you know, I would say when you see people out there kind of lecturing each other about how to do it or you're doing it wrong, just trust your own gut, right? Just make your own path. Ignore what doesn't sound right to you or doesn't resonate with you. The stuff that does resonate, it sounds right to you, and you feel like it's coming from a trustworthy source. Follow your heart, follow your gut, trust those instincts, and be patient with it, man. And you know, one piece of advice I got from Joe Illidge, he said, focus on the one story you cannot live without telling. Like if you were going to be dying in the future, you know, and you had to get one story out, make sure that that's the one that you focus on. And so that really helped me with Major Thomás. I was like, yes, this is the one. And I do have some other projects that I'm tinkering with in the background, but like I put so much time, effort, blood, guts, sweat, and tears into this book for like 5 years that it's really satisfying now to see that it's out there.
Are there any major, characters from one of the, of the publishers you'd like to take a shot at, or have a story you want to tell?
I mean, I'm a huge Captain America fan, as you might tell. I've got shields all over this office. Some of them are out of view, but all shapes and sizes and colors of the shield. You know what? Let me answer it this way, Chad. It doesn't matter to me if Marvel never knows who I am. I can make my own Captain America story and I can put it out as a fan fiction. And I just may do that someday. I don't know. I do have a story that I'm burning to tell about old Cap, Steve Rogers, in a way that's never been told before. And I might do it someday and put it out for free. I wouldn't let that stop me. I love Star Wars, and I did a Star Wars fan fiction, and I put it out for free. I love Metroid from Nintendo. I did 2 of those. I love it so much, and I might be doing a 3rd at some point soon. So I would tell people, like, if there's something you're dying to do, just do it, man. Like, if you put it out for free and you recognize who owns the trademark and copyright and all that, which, you have to do, and you never make a penny off of it, then follow your heart and do it, man. I see some people out there sometimes that put out a little 2 or 3 page Spider-Man fan fiction, and I love it, dude. I love seeing that. I was like, yes, you love Spider-Man so much. You're going to lose money on this, but you don't care because you're dying to tell this little Spider-Man short story. But yeah, I would say probably Cap is like the one. I love Batman. I love Spider-Man. I love Wolverine, but I don't have enough lifetimes to do stories about all those guys, especially if I'm footing the bill and putting it out for free.
So just, you mentioned you're a big Star Wars fan. Who's your favorite character, or would you mind, or would you like to dabble in that universe?
I did a story on the Mandalorian, and it was his first hunt. Like he's a rookie bounty hunter, and he's going out for the first time on his own. And I made so many connections around him to the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy, and even the sequel trilogy to try to tell a really nice tie together arc revolving around Mando. Now, who's my favorite Star Wars character? It's hard to argue against Darth Vader because he's like, and again, you see him as a boy, you see him as an adolescent, then we see him as an angry old salty, adult who's living in his own prison that he created. He's such a great character who has such a great storyline and redemption arc. It's hard to argue against him, but purely from a comics action perspective, I would love to do Darth Maul. Any Darth Maul comic that comes out, I am devouring that sucker like the day that it comes out. I love me some Darth Maul, man. He's in fact, you could see him back there. I got a Darth Maul cookie jar that came out around the time of the Phantom Menace. His head comes off. Could put cookies in there. But yeah, dude, that's the one. He would lend himself to such great action, and he already does, right? Like there's so many Darth Maul comics out there, and there's rumors that he's coming back for an animated series on Disney Plus. Oh, I would be in heaven with that.
It would be cool if the cookie jar if you like lifted it from the waist.
To split him in half. To split him in half.
That would be pretty cool.
You know what would be a great little fan fiction? Now you've really got my juices flowing, Chad, is to see him, how he survived being split in half and falling like a million stories down the reactor shaft, on the planet Naboo. How does he get so angry, and how does he muster enough Sith dark side energy to survive that? Who finds him? Who cauterizes his waist, and keeps his guts from falling out? And eventually, I think in the cartoons he has those like giant robot legs and stuff. But yeah, dude, that would be an amazing little story to tell. And maybe it's been told, I don't know, but not as far as I know.
I think that, not to get too far in the weeds, but I think Darth Maul's kind of been underused. I mean, the two Legends books that he has been the subject of are pretty good.
All right, we're back.
Okay, we're back. I don't know what that.
Sorry about that.
Oh no, that's okay. So I was curious if you can talk about any of your future projects that you may have on the boil.
None that I can really talk about. I've got like some pitches in development. One's like kind of a rated R dystopian future kind of thing. Another one's like I would say rated G, more middle grade style, like historical fiction type of story. Those may or may not ever see the light of day. But those are things that I'm tinkering around in the background with. I do have a very recent project with Mad Cave called LA Strong, and that's a charity anthology, which is just an amazing collection of people from like newer creators like me all the way to like, really superstar, we're talking like Bendis, Didio, Palmiotti, Jody Hauser, Stephanie Phillips, like really well-known names. And it's like 60 pages, it's $10, and every penny goes to charity efforts to help comics creators that were impacted by the LA fires. It just came out not too long ago. It launched like late March, and you can still order it from your local comic shop. It's published by Mad Cave. It's called LA Strong. If you want to support comics creators that were impacted by the fires, it's only $10, and it's a really great anthology with a great message behind it. Like, we're here to take care of our own and help our own. I actually know a couple of creators who were impacted very severely, lost a home in one case. So it was very touching for me to be a California native and to have a little tiny little vignette in that anthology, which is out now, and you can still order it. In fact, Mad Cave might have further plans to do like a second printing, or maybe divide it up into smaller installments. I'm not sure, but that's one I would ask people to look into, as well as Major Thomás on Amazon. Yes, absolutely. I was so thrilled when they chose me. I made a short pitch and they said, yes, go do it, go write it up now. And then it was odd because I didn't have any idea what the artwork was going to look like, or who even the artist was. I got paired up with a guy called Stefano Cartaselli. He's an Italian guy. He has a really great like style. I would label it as like a dystopian style. And he just did an amazing image to match to pair with my words. So yeah, LA Strong. That's a good one.
Excellent. Chad?
So, well, you kind of took one of my usual questions of what advice would you have? What do you want people to take away from the book, if anything?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that. The main kind of thrust, the main kind of message for me, and this is, a real personal thing, is when you have a moment of truth in your life, when you're at the crossroads of, do I play it safe, right, and perhaps miss out on a wonderful opportunity or living my dream, or really just diving in headfirst and going for it and being focused and not letting things distract you, like doubts, obstacles, imposter syndrome. That's what I want people to take away is at that moment of truth, go for it, man. Don't hesitate. Don't look back. And at least try, man. Try your best to do that thing that you want to do, that will make you happy, that will make your dreams come true. Because if you just hold back and you're timid, it may never happen for you. And I really want young people to read this and go, man, I don't want to live with regrets, right? I don't want to sabotage myself and because that's part of what happens with Thomás. He's kind of split with his emotions, and he's split with his focus, and he's split with what he really wants. And you can't have it all, man. You can't have two things at the same time. And so he pays the price for that. But then, hopefully he's got a chance to make that right down the road. But in the meantime, he has to learn this very hard lesson. And so that's my message, man, is go for it with a singular focus that does not relent and does not let anything get in your way.
And that goes double for people out there trying to make comics.
Absolutely. Again, it's like me talking to myself, right? I'm taking my own advice.
That's right. That's right. And here you are doing it. So,
thank you.
Yeah. So, Omar, thank you so much for your time this evening. I think the book is fantastic. It is Major Thomás. It is currently on sale for a mere $6.99 on Comixology. And you should absolutely check it out. Chad, do you have a final question or anything?
No, but I do have who we have next week. Actually, it's going to be next Wednesday.
Oh, I'm ready.
Jordy Belair.
Jordy Belair is stopping by. You can't say no to that. So join us.
She's writing a Mad Cave book. It's I forget what it can't think of it right now, but she's actually writing this book for them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Can't wait to talk to her.
Yeah, that'll be a good one, man. Mad Cave is killing it right now.
Absolutely, they are. Love what they're doing, man. They're doing some really good things for the comics community.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Omar Morales, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. Thank you all for listening. Get out there in the world and do some good things, okay? It's a crappy place right now, but it doesn't have to be. Get out there, support local comics, support local art, support your local comic shop. Just do something positive in the world, and you shall be repaid. Thank you for everything, and we will catch you next time.